I'm Jon Heilemann, and this is the Hell and High Water podcast. My guest today, Men in Blazers' Roger Bennett and Sports Illustrated's Jon Wertheim. And we are here on Hell and High Water with two guests today, two amazing, brilliant gentlemen, authors of fantastic books. Jon Wertheim from Sports Illustrated, author of this fabulous book, Glory Days, the Summer of 1984, and the 90 Days That Changed Sports and Culture Forever. John, great to see you. And Roger Bennett, the Roger Bennett, the one and only, the man whose book is in some ways named after the song you just heard. The book is called Reborn in the USA. An Englishman's Love Letter to His Chosen Home. Gentlemen, I was telling you before we started that there's no podcast I've ever done that's meant more to me than this podcast, and I can't tell you, my delight is off the charts. Welcome.
It's a joy to be here.
Likewise.
You guys are like me, both huge sports fans, but also talk brilliantly about not just sports, but about the intersection of sports and culture and politics and society, and that's what we're going to talk about mostly today. It is 2021, I'm certain, even though we're calling them the 2020 Olympics. Thoughts from a high level, what do you guys think of the Olympics so far? John, you can start.
Oh, man. It is a new range of emotion. I mean, there's something sort of sad, and we have great, usually, it's this festive. We're on the streets of Rio, or London's been invigorated. This is sort of a new palette of emotions as we watch these games. Some of this is obviously COVID. Some of this is our ambivalence about how commercialized these games have become. And you'll notice all this debate about whether they should happen or should not happen. Now, mood, of course, none of it had much to do with the athletes. It was all about NBC, and it was all about sponsors and investments in infrastructure and $20 billion on facilities. The time change has not been a great ally. We're still sort of, as we speak, we should timestamp this the way we timestamp 2021, but we're still sort of waiting for one of those signature, we're waiting for one of those signature moments. I don't know. I mean, I think one thing we have realized, and they've been especially pronounced at these Olympics, fans kind of matter. And whether it's swimming and diving or gymnastics or tennis, it's really awkward to see these events play out in front of this pasture of unoccupied seats.
Roger, what do you reckon? You are the I know that during the pandemic, like the absence of fans, and when sports kind of got up and running again, the absence of fans kind of freaked me out. Is it weirding you out to see these games take place in empty arenas?
COVID changed not just sports, but it changed your approach to life in general. Football, soccer without fans is nothing. But the reality is, even fanless sport gives us the meaning, the sense of global connectivity, the sense of joy, and the sense of collective memory that we crave and need as humans. And the thing that has really blown my Olympics away and everybody's is the Simone Biles moment.
Yeah.
What a great American.
Right.
And it's just an amazing act to me, by not participating, is possibly the most courageous, the bravest, the most remarkable achievement, an incredible moment of seizing agency, of expressing vulnerability, of articulating trauma, acknowledging human pain. That's ultimately why we watch sports, to transcend sports itself and tap into agony, feelings, human wonder. And that thing, more than anything, is going to be, to me, ignoring the culture wars, the Piers Morganification of culture, which is just a human darkness. That, to me, is the thing that that not taking part is one of the great moments of sport that I've witnessed in a long time.
Up until they started, people were still asking that question. Should we be really doing these Olympics? Primarily because of COVID, not just because of the absence of spectators, but also because of the potential risk to Tokyo, because of the risk to athletes and so on. And you sort of glided by the notion that debate, as soon as they started, it kind of went away. Do you think that's right? That everybody now sort of is like, oh, that was a silly debate? Or do you think that there's still, as COVID numbers have spiked in Japan, we haven't seen many athletes knocked out because of COVID, but do you think the debate is settled that this was a good idea, or is there still some question that history might look back and say, maybe this wasn't such a good idea, we should have put it off even further, or just skip this whole cycle?
It's tough. I mean, the phrase I kept hearing was "too big to fail," which again had nothing to do with athletes, just as a commercial enterprise. I don't know. I mean, we played. I watched the Wimbledon finals a few weeks ago, and that was played at center court. There were fans in the stands. The Euros were played in front of fans. I think that sort of the science and the data has borne out. It probably was the right decision to hold these games. I mean, luckily, I think everyone was bracing for, these huge sort of micro clusters. This was going to be a super spreader event, and athletes and events were going to have to get canceled. We really haven't had much of that. I think shared experience is something we could probably all benefit from. It's competition. There's still gold medal winners. I mean, I think on balance, it probably was the right decision to hold these games. But I think especially coming off of these events where you did have fans in the stands. We would have heard, I understand, they just, the Milwaukee Bucks played in front of 18,000 people, and now we're not having the Olympics. So I think it probably is the right decision.
Hey, Roger, do you think, you look at the numbers, I know you're a businessman at heart, an entrepreneur, and you're the soul of an entrepreneur, the men in blazers.
I have no soul. Well,
okay, I was speaking metaphorically, but that's fine. I accept that. Do you look at the numbers, which are fucking abysmal, right? How if I were going to ask you to do your blue book on why are the numbers down, not just down, but down a lot, what would be your answer?
I love any question, John, where I'm asked to speak on behalf of the entire world. It's not an Olympics problem. It's not a television problem. It's really, all sports leagues are dealing with this same issue, that what was taken for granted. It's why I love John's book so much. Going back to a more innocent time when sports absolutely dominated and was a monolith, which it is absolutely not now. The Olympics is massive. The Olympics is making, in terms of social engagement, driving social conversation, but how it was imbibed in the old. I remember growing up in Liverpool. When Wimbledon was on television, my mother was gone for 4 weeks. She was sat in front of that television for, just an entire 4 bloody weeks. She was not moving as long as Virginia Wade was hitting tennis balls at Chris Evert-Lloyd and England still had hope. And, that notion of having to sit in front of a television and imbibe in the same way, it's not a 2 weeks Olympic problem. Right. It's a football problem. The 90 minutes of a football game is now a soccer game is now an incredible challenge for an audience under the age of 18. And how we adapt, the face of sports, the face of media, speaking on behalf of the world, that's essentially the nexus of the question you're asking me to solve.
Thank you for watching. You can watch the full episode of Hell and High Water on The Recount, streaming daily, or listen to it wherever you get your podcasts.